Happy New Year, everybody. It is season 4 of 3 Things with JR. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the new theme song. I've got some little sound bits that I'm going to be adding into this episode, and I've got some things to talk about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I am just back from Florida. I was gone for about 5 days. Kiki, my girlfriend, and I went down in her big truck with her big horse trailer and a bunch of horses. We drove them down. We drove around. We went to visit my mother, and we drove back. And we had a good time. It was a nice trip. We listened to an audiobook. We played some Broadway trivia from a book that she got me for Christmas. We had zero issues with driving other than the torrential downpours and basically tornado conditions in North Carolina or South Carolina. I don't remember which. On our way down, it was crazy. Lots of rain, but didn't cause us any problems really. And just a fun, nice trip. Lots of driving around, and not a lot of sleeping in, which is... You know, I do like that part of a vacation, but I felt we got a lot done. We went out to eat at some really nice restaurants, visited with some friends and family, and just had a really nice trip. I did get to play some disc golf while I was down there. I played at Sawmill Disc Golf Course in Ocala, which is an awesome, awesome course. I really like that place. I have yet to play very good there. I've played there 3 different times now, twice last year when we went to Ocala and once this year, and I have scored the exact same score all 3 times, 4 over par, which is not something I'm proud of, but it was still fun. And then in Ocala, we went to play at Lakeview Disc Golf Course, where there's signs to warn you about the alligators that are in the water. Yet to see any alligators, but you do get to see sunbathing turtles and some really nice birds, and just a beautiful disc golf course. Kiki hung out with me while I played that round, took lots of pictures of the wildlife. We threw the dog in the dog park, and just had a great time. So, yeah, really nice. I played horrible at disc golf, but had a great time doing it, which is all that matters, right? While I was in Florida visiting my mother, I got to meet Dell. If you've listened to last season of this show, you might remember an episode where I was on another podcast called Two Old Bucks. One of the old bucks is a guy named Dell, who is a neighbor of my mother's down in Sarasota, Florida. He's an older gentleman. They have a show. They just chit-chat about stuff. And I was on their show and basically put their show on my show, sort of a co-podcasting thing. And but I actually got to meet him in person, and he's quite an interesting fella. He's got some sort of past that he's very secretive about, and I wish I knew more about it. He mentioned in passing while we were just, chatting about how to build a submachine gun out of like MacGyver style. Like he might know how to do that. And he suggested a topic for me to discuss on my show. He suggested I discuss ED. See, he's a clever old guy, and he thinks that if I go into ED, you're going to think I'm talking about erectile dysfunction, when really he thinks I should talk about electrical distribution. That was his joke. And I mean, I think it's his joke. I think it's his thing to do on his show. It's not really my joke. But anyway, that was Dell. I met him. He's a nice guy. We had to get back Sunday night so that I could go to court and to the DMV today, Monday, January 9th. Now, I had to go to court. I didn't have to. It was optional. I was given the choice. It was suggested that I show up at court, and I did. It was suggested because the court case I went to see, to sort of play a small role in, is the charges against a woman who owns a pit bull that attacked my dog Scherzer last year in Charlottesville. And I did talk about this a little bit on the show. She was indeed ordered by the court to pay me all of the money that I paid in vet bills to mend Scherzer from this horrific attack. And those vet bills equaled about $3,400. And she even before the court ordered her to, started paying me back. She met me twice and gave me $200 in cash, and then she finally, with the help of her daughter, got hooked up with Venmo, so she was able to electronically send me money. She did that one time. Another $200. So she's paid me $600. She still owes me somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,700, $2,800, something like that. And that was back in July, the last time she paid me. She had yet to pay me another dime. And today was the day she was supposed to show up in court and say to the judge, "Yes, Your Honor, I have paid all of that debt." And he would have said, "Great, done, you're out of here, see you later. Please don't let your dog attack anybody again." The dog's been euthanized, by the way. But that's not what happened. I showed up with a printout of our text messages in which she told me she would pay me, also in which she got very angry with me and thought that I was being patronizing to her when I suggested that she start paying me again. She said, "You'll have your money," but she did not have my money to buy today. So now, instead of conveniently just sending me money whenever she can in order to get this paid off, she is now having to pay court-ordered restitution to the court. So now I don't have to follow up with her anymore. The court will do that. And when she sends the court a check, they send me a check. Which I guess is okay, right? I mean, I'm going to get paid this money eventually, theoretically, unless she just defies this court order. But yeah, so that's where we stand. She had quite the sob story she tried to tell the judge. When the judge was explaining court-ordered restitution to her, he said, "How much can you afford to pay each month?" And she went into a sob story about how hard her life has been. She used to work in Charlottesville as an RN, but now she had to change that job. It couldn't work for a while, and now she's in Baltimore and yada, yada, yada. And the judge said to her after the sob story, "My question was, what can you afford to pay each month?" And she said around $300. And her sob story must have worked because he said, "I'm going to make it mandatory that you pay $150 a month. You can pay more than that, and you should, but that's the minimum, and you'll need to be back here in 6 months so that we can check in on your progress. If you've paid it off in full within 6 months, you don't have to come back." Let's hope she takes advantage of that opportunity, and that would be great so that I can pay back my credit card a little faster. Anyway, that's where court went. Now, court was fun. I got to hang out in court before her case was called, so I got to watch a guy, and none of this was like the details of the case. It was all like status, appointing court-appointed lawyers and things like that. There was 3 people that were in jail, and so they were showing up in court via Zoom, and one guy was accused of indecent exposure, running around naked in a public place, touching himself. Another guy was charged with firing a firearm from a moving vehicle. Another guy was shoplifting and aggravated assault. And all he had to do to have these charges dropped was complete some sort of therapy exercise thing that would have taken a few months, 6 months, something like that. But he failed to graduate from that therapy because he couldn't stop smoking marijuana, which is a non-starter for this whatever program he needed to graduate from. This is all according to his lawyer. I gotta say, what impressed me most about all of this was the sensitivity and compassion and understanding that the judge displayed for every single one of these defendants. I thought he was extremely fair and handled everything really, really well, including the lady that owns the dog. I thought, he didn't need the details of her sob story. He took her at her word and gave her a little leniency, and I'm okay with that. Sure, I would like to be paid faster, but it's fine. I can tell from my dealings with this woman, her life is significantly harder than mine. And I'm also willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and some leniency. And, I'll get paid when I get paid. And if I don't get paid, I mean, it would be annoying, but I can handle it. So, yeah, let's show the woman some compassion, and all those folks. So, hats off to the court. The General District Court of Charlottesville did a nice job this morning. This afternoon, I had to be at the DMV. Yes, in one day, I needed to go to court and the DMV. Now, the DMV, I needed to go there because I've recently changed my address. So I went to the website a month or so ago and filled out the change of address form. And along the way, it said, hey, you should probably go ahead and apply for the Real ID, which at some point in the next year or two will be mandatory if you want to travel on domestic airlines. At some point this year, you'll need this. Or you'll need to show your passport even for domestic travel. But if you have your Real ID, it's all easier. You should apply for that. Here's the requirements. You got to have you got to show your passport and your social security card and proof of, since you're changing address, you got a proof of, your official change of address form and a pay stub or a bill showing your name and your new address. And several, you had a bunch of stuff. So I read all that stuff. I gathered all those documents, and then I filled out the application for the Real ID and an updated voter registration card, all to do all at once, and made an appointment at the DMV. I did this a month ago. Today was that appointment at 4:30 p.m. on a Monday. Is that a good time or a bad time? I don't know. I showed up early. I was there at about 4:10, 4:15. I walked in the door. They've got a little thing that says scan this QR code if you have an appointment and then check in on your phone. So I did that. And I'm walking in the door and hitting the check-in button when my check-in number pops up and you can hear on the loudspeakers, A57, come to window 11. I'm like, that's me. Hold on. I'm early. I checked in and boom, I'm immediately called up to go do my business. I get to there and I say to the lady, well, that was fast. I just checked in. And she was just as nice and as wonderful as could be. I explained what I wanted to do. I provided the documentation I knew I needed to provide. And she said, great, thank you so much. This looks all good. Did you fill out the application for the Real ID? I said, yes, I did. On the website, I filled it out and then set the appointment. She said, well, I can't find it. I said, that's okay, because I also printed it out and filled it out by hand just in case. She found me amazing. I was a good DMV customer today. I exceeded her expectations, and she, in turn, exceeded mine, because this was about the smoothest, nicest, and fastest DMV transaction I have ever had. I paid him $30. I had my picture taken, and I was told that in about a week I'll get my Real ID, and in about a month I'll get my new voter registration card with my current address. And I was literally done with my appointment 5 minutes before my appointment was scheduled to start. I was scheduled for a 4:30. I got there early, and I got out at 4:25. And so the Charlottesville DMV has their shit on together. The Postal Service could use some tips from the DMV because whatever they're doing, it's working. Their website was great. The customer service and the experience at the DMV was like no other DMV experience I've had before. And when you hear horror stories of people going to the DMV, I'm convinced of a couple things. One, it's probably not like that much anymore because so many people are able to set up an appointment for what they want to do. Their expectations for what they need to bring with them are really well laid out on the website. So you're not just showing up, getting a number, and waiting for an hour and a half for your appointment, which I have done. I think that's less of a thing than it used to be, which is great. The other thing is I'm also convinced that people that show up at the DMV and are, they're talking about how horrible it was probably didn't come prepared. If you come with all of the stuff you're supposed to bring with you, then you're going to have a much better experience than if you come unprepared, and you're going to have to make multiple trips. So I believe that the DMV customers are at least halfway to blame for horrible DMV experiences. But there you go. Who'd have thought I'd have been bragging about the DMV and court to start off the 4th season of Three Things with JR. Woo! What a beginning. And we haven't even gotten to my 3 things yet. I've got them. I've got 3 things, and we're going to start with thing number 1. So I'm down in Florida. I'm at my mom's house. Kiki has gone to bed. It's late at night on Friday night, January 6th, 2023. And we're watching the 13th vote in the House of Representatives for the new Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy is sure he's going to get it, and then he doesn't. Drama ensues. Are we going to adjourn or not? What the hell is Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert doing? Oh, look, there's that idiot George Santos. Hakeem Jeffries is just sitting there, and everybody is displaying, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were displaying an incredible amount of patience and enthusiasm for such an arduous, long, drawn-out task that the Republicans couldn't seem to figure out until the 14th vote. Finally, it happens. They get enough votes. Enough people are like, fine, cool, you do this for me, and I'll vote for, well, I'll not vote for you, but I'll vote as president so you get enough votes. It finally happens. That's not the thing. I haven't gotten to the thing yet. The thing is what happened after the vote. Because what happened after the vote was a little confusing at first. And I mean, I think a lot of people probably went to bed at this point. It was after midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, close to 2 a.m., when they're announcing all of the people that are supposed to escort the new House Speaker in, and then all these people leave, and then it's just like, what's happening? And I'm watching on C-SPAN with no commentary. I just want to see the raw government in action. Finally, a bunch of people come back into the chamber, and I'm expecting Kevin McCarthy, the new House Speaker of the House, to go up to his new chair, which he's very excited about having just won. But he doesn't go up. Hakeem Jeffries goes up. Our new minority leader, the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, the guy who had been nominated for Speaker of the House 14 times along with Kevin McCarthy, who always came up 4 or 6 or whatever votes short because because the Democrats don't hold a majority. So I've never once paid attention to this process in the past, right? So this is, like, I'm sure many Americans, my first time witnessing this part of how government works. And apparently the House Minority Leader introduces the new Speaker of the House. Is that a normal thing? Is that always how it's been? I don't know, but that's how it was on Friday night. Hakeem Jeffries comes up, and what I was expecting was for him to give some sort of nice conciliatory speech to recognize that the moment wasn't really his, it was Kevin McCarthy's, the guy who just won. And I was expecting this to take a couple minutes. Congratulations, we'll work with you, not against you, that kind of stuff, and then introduce Kevin McCarthy. But no. Hakeem Jeffries took this opportunity to speak eloquently, passionately, enthusiastically, creatively about the Democrats, the Republicans, Congress, what their purpose is. And the more he spoke, the more invigorated I felt, the more inspired I felt by listening to this guy talk. And I'm thinking, when did he write this speech? Did he write it after the 14th vote when he realized he lost? That wouldn't make any sense. He probably had the speech written, at least mostly written, before even the first vote, because he knew he wasn't going to win. The Republicans have the votes to elect a Republican if they can just get themselves together. So he knew he was not going to win, so he probably wrote most of this speech earlier in the week, 2 weeks ago, whenever, before all of this stuff happened, and had it ready to go so that whenever the time came, he could deliver this amazing speech. And then he did finally, after the 14th vote, have his chance to deliver this thing that I know he had to be excited to be delivering this speech because there were some jabs in there was inspiration in there, and I think he did a really nice job of introducing himself to the world. Unfortunately, the world was mostly asleep, unless you were a pundit or unless you just really care about Speaker of the House votes, and I don't, but I did this time. I'm hoping, and part of the reason I wanted this to be thing one today is to make sure as many people as possible hear this guy's speech. And I'm going to play part of it. If you've read anything about it or heard anything about it or watched it on YouTube, you've probably heard about the A to Z part of his speech. And I'm actually going to play it for you in its entirety here in just a minute because I think it's just fantastic. Listen for, I think it was a surprise. I think I don't think anybody in the House chamber was expecting, for one, for his speech to be 15 to 16 minutes long, and two, to end with this sort of gimmicky, sort of fun way of multiple jabs at Republicans, and to do this at the end of the speech prolonged it even more. I think people were frustrated with how long it was going on. People on the right side of the aisle were probably like, I think that's who you're going to hear yelling at some point and sounding annoyed and like maybe wishing he would get off the stage. You're going to hear some of that. You'll hear some cheers, and there's definitely some jabs in there. So let's listen to the last bit of Hakeem Jeffries' speech given Friday night, Saturday morning, January 6th, 7th, as he's leading us up into Kevin McCarthy's speech, which we're not going to bother to listen to because it's basically a bunch of Republican rhetoric and exactly what you would expect it to be. But the Hakeem Jeffries thing was not what I expected it to be, and here goes.
Now, I recognize that this is a moment of transition. As we transition from one Congress to the next, from one majority to the next, from a year of accomplishment, to a year of ambiguity, a moment of transition. The American people, understandably, after the events of this week, recognize that the Congress is at a fork in the road and are asking the question, what direction will we choose? On this first day, I do not pretend to answer that question on behalf of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. But we do extend our hand of partnership to you and want to make clear that we extend and intend to try to find common ground whenever and wherever possible on behalf of the American people. Not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents, but as Americans. But I also want to make clear that we will never compromise our principles. House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, inclusion over isolation, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over QAnon, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, xenial over xenophobia, yes we can over you can't do it, and zealous representation over zero-sum confrontation. We will always do the right thing by the American people. So let us not grow weary of doing good, for the American people will reap the benefit of the harvest if we do not give up. God bless you, God bless the House, and God bless the United States of America.
Wow. That is Hakeem Jeffries doing his A to Z thing in the House of Representatives Friday night, Saturday morning after the 14th vote to finally elect a Speaker of the House. I'm going to say it. It's probably going to be the title of this episode, so you might already know. I think this is a moment like when I first, and when many people first saw Barack Obama on a national stage. It was at the Democratic National Convention where he gave a speech. I remember seeing clips of it on the news. I didn't watch it live, but I saw enough of it to know that, something's different about this guy. He is more genuine, cares more, and has stuff to say that most of these other people aren't saying. And I think this is a situation very much like that. I've seen news reports that he is a rising star in the Democratic Party, and I see why. I see why they kept nominating him and unanimously voting for him on the Democratic side here. I'm with them. I like it. Hakeem Jeffries for president. Why doesn't maybe he run instead of any other Democrat? Just that guy. I've read about him, and I'm sure, everybody seems to have some sort of skeleton in their closet. I can't imagine what his might be, but he seems like the right guy. And now would be a wonderful time for people to start talking about him as the Democratic nominee to run in 2024. Biden's best, attribute is that he's not Trump, but he's clearly not making most Americans happy right now as our president. And I think this guy has got a better chance than most to make people at least, at the very least, to feel like there's some new young blood representing current, the most of Americans. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying now. I'm diving into territory I don't normally get into, endorsing political candidates and talking about politics and government. That's not what this show's about, but I've been thinking about it ever since I stayed up very late to watch it, just because I kind of felt like something great was about to happen, or at least interesting. I was certainly expecting weird, crazy shit from the Republicans and McCarthy and his speech and all that. I was not expecting this, and I'm really glad I watched it. And I will put a link to his entire speech in the show notes of this episode. It's not hard to find, though. Hakeem Jeffries' speech, January 6th. We'll find it quickly on YouTube. You'll have multiple options. I suggest the C-SPAN option. You don't get any talking heads before or after. So there you go. That was thing number one. Quick break and we'll be right back.
Let there be love. Love will find a way. Yes, it will. Let there be love. Love will find a way. Always.
And we're back. week, and it's time for
Thing number 2.
This is going to be a quick one. I don't have a ton for you. I was listening to the Rolling Stone New Music podcast today where they were highlighting a bunch of songs from 2022 that probably a bunch of people hadn't heard, right? They were not chart toppers, that kind of thing. And they started off in the country and Americana category, and they named a bunch, and I don't remember most of what they came up with, but one name stuck out. It was a band called 49 Winchester, which is cool because they are a band from Virginia. Their band name is based on the address of wherever they would rehearse their get-together. Their band HQ was... Oh, yeah. The burps are back now for season 4, by the way. I will not be editing them out anymore. 49 Winchester was like their address. The street name was Winchester and their house was 49, something like that. And a lot of their songs, they sing about Virginia and their home state and things like that. And it's just really good, not crappy country music, right? It's Americana. It's got genuine feeling and emotion, and it's just fantastic. I was never really a big country music fan. When I met Bobby Sims and Charles Wyant and formed the band Icehouse Road, I became much more familiar with this whole red dirt Americana category of music, genre of music that I had never really paid attention to before. People or bands like Reckless Kelly, Cross Canadian Ragweed, Ryan Bingham, and many, many others. And it's great music. Sturgill Simpson, for example. But 49 Winchester is great, so I Googled them. I Spotified them and found that they are on the Yellowstone official playlist. And that's where I'm actually headed with this. Thing number 2 is I want to recommend to you the Yellowstone official playlist. Now, whether you watch the show or not doesn't matter. And if you can get on board with the idea of Americana music, stuff with a little bit of twang, a little bit of heartland to it, and a little bit of feeling, and some steel guitar and stuff like that. If you can get on board with that kind of music at all, at any level, give this playlist a try. I do watch the show Yellowstone every week when it comes out, usually the night it's on or within a day or two. Kiki is a bigger fan than I am, but I do enjoy Yellowstone, despite the fact that there's stuff about it that confuses me. They avoid politics mostly, but every now and then they wear it on their sleeve. And it's a little over the top and ridiculous, but in so many fun ways. Easily, the best part of Yellowstone from my perspective is the music. It heavily embraces this kind of music that is very much a part of the show. It is intertwined into scenes where it's just music playing in the background. It's also part of the show itself. Ryan Bingham is an actor on the show and plays music on the show. And they've played the official Yellowstone playlist is 197 songs. We're through like season 4. It's like halfway through season 4 right now. And this is how many songs have appeared in the episodes of these shows. And this playlist is fantastic. All sorts of names on them. Many you've heard of, many you may never have heard of unless you're a big Americana music fan. But Dwight Yoakam is on here. Ryan Bingham, of course, is on here. 49 Winchester, as I mentioned earlier, is on here. What else? We got Cody Johnson is on here. Jason Isbell is on here. Tons more. Willie Nelson is here. Blackberry Smoke, another band I was introduced to from thanks to my association with Icehouse Road. What's that Tennessee whiskey guy is on here? Chris Stapleton. Bad Flamingo, Sturgill Simpson. I remember watching the first season of this show, Yellowstone, not quite sure yet if I was a fan, but every single episode, like the music that plays at the end of the show and the over the end credits and stuff is always, I was like, oh wait, that's Sturgill Simpson. Oh wait, that's Blackberry Smoke. Oh wait, that's Ryan Bingham. And then in season 2, Ryan Bingham's on the show, and it's awesome. And I don't know all of these songs. What I am going to do, what I am already doing as of today, is I'm going to be listening to this playlist a bunch because this music is fantastic, and it's just, I highly recommend it. There's a bunch of good stuff in there, and I recommend you check it out. I'm going to put a link to that playlist also in the show notes for this episode. So if you want a Spotify playlist link, go to the show notes for this episode and you should be able to get right to it. Or you can just go to Spotify and search for Yellowstone. I also found one on YouTube. I don't know if it's as official as the one on Spotify. The Spotify one's got like a blue check mark and says Yellowstone official playlist. The one on YouTube Music just seems like somebody put one together. So it's not quite as official. So I do recommend the Spotify one here. But there you go. The Yellowstone official playlist. That is thing number 2. And now, thing number 3. On our drive down to Florida the other day, I saw a place that I knew I wanted to stop at on the way back. It was too late to stop there on the way down, but I knew I wanted to stop there on the way back. And the reason I wanted to stop by there was because last year at work, I train new sales advisors at Crutchfield, and there was like 10 or so of them in one group, and one of them used to live in Florida and made the drive to Virginia often, and started telling us about a place called Buc-ee's. If you've ever been to a Buc-ee's, you know what I'm about to talk about. If you've never been to a Buc-ee's, let me try to set your expectations correctly, which will be tough to do. Because here it is. At its simplest, it is a travel plaza gas station thing for regular people. It is not a truck stop. Now, every Buc-ee's is probably right alongside the highway. And when you go into a Buc-ee's parking lot, you might think you are in a Walmart parking lot. The parking lot's humongous, and it fully surrounds the building and the gas pumps. I didn't count the number of gas pumps, but if I had to estimate, I would say 50 to 60 individual gas pumps. Like each little row has 2, and there's probably like 15 of them. And then 100 feet in front of that, another row of them, another 2 pumps. And every one of them has regular gas and diesel. Some of them have the diesel exhaust fluid. I mean, it's a ridiculous number of gas pumps, and they're all full. Sometimes there's a line to get into the gas pumps. It is, and the reason for that is the gas is and the diesel is significantly cheaper than anywhere else on the highway. Like, if you can make it to Buc-ee's, you will save money on your fuel. Gas or diesel for Kiki's truck, the lowest we saw anywhere on the trip was like $4.29 a gallon. Diesel at Buc-ee's was like $3.79, like significantly cheaper than the fuel anywhere else. So that's clearly a reason to go to Buc-ee's. And even if you just do that and get out of there, you will have saved a ton of money. But if you go into Buc-ee's, you are... Well, it's, again, hard to overstate what is going on inside of a Buc-ee's, because it's kind of like, I'm used to, the current gas station trend is to get away from, little podunk things and to go more towards some higher end gas stations like a Sheetz and a Wawa here in Virginia, right? With made to order food where they can cook it and it's kind of fresh and it's kind of good. It's not your 7-Eleven stuff where it's been rolling on the hot dog rollers for hours. It's better quality food, right? I'm used to that. Those things popping up everywhere. Royal Farms, Mavericks. There's tons of different ones of these in the regions around the country. Upscale, much better than we used to deal with gas stations. Buc-ee's makes them look tiny. They make the biggest, fanciest Wawa you've ever seen look podunk. Buc-ee's is the size of a small Walmart. And when you go in, there's probably 100 employees in this place. There's 10 or 15 people behind the meat counter cutting up fresh brisket and announcing it loudly to the crowd who is standing around watching them chop it on the chopping block. There are fresh sandwiches. There are made-to-order foods. There's touch screens everywhere to order the food and drinks that you might want. Every kind of drink you could possibly want. Everything any convenience store has to offer takes up a small, like a quarter of a Buc-ee's. Another huge section at Buc-ee's is it's basically like a Tractor Supply store. You can go in and get like fishing gear and camo pants and, mesh safari hats and things like that. They've got a bunch of travel supplies, of course. There's an entire section devoted just to Buc-ee's branded products, apparel, pajamas, blankets, little mini footballs, frisbees, hats, anything they can put Buc-ee's logo on, they will, and it's a big deal. They out front, you can you know how Walmart will have like lawnmowers and barbecue grills and stuff like that on display out front of the store? So does Buc-ee's. They had smokers. You could buy a $500 smoker or a really nice one for $1,700. You could load that onto your truck at a Buc-ee's and take it home with you, which is weird. I don't see why anybody would go to this place to buy a smoker unless it's the cheapest way to buy that particular brand of smoker. I don't know. It might be. Knowing Buc-ee's, it probably is. Anyway, I just wanted to set your expectations. And if you ever get a chance to go to Buc-ee's, I recommend you do. The last thing about them that is significant, that is worth mentioning, is there's a sign out front for hiring. Buc-ee's is hiring, and they list how much they pay for various positions. And, your average, cashier type person is going to make like $18 an hour in Florence, South Carolina, which seems to me like a pretty good starting wage, well above minimum wage for sure. And then there's the yearly salary for department managers. Like if you're the manager of the car wash section or the manager of the meat department or the store itself, the advertised on a sign out front of the Buc-ee's pay for these positions is pretty much all $100,000 and up per year. So you could be the car wash manager and you're making $100,000 a year. Store managers are making upwards of $125,000 a year and more. I think this is, they can't be everywhere, right? You can't put a Buc-ee's on every corner like they're doing with Sheetz and Wawa, but more of them on the sides of interstates, big interstates like 95, which is where we found this one in Florence, South Carolina. The more of them, the better, because Buc-ee's is pretty awesome. Now, I don't know what it's like when it's not crowded in there, but there was a lot of people in Buc-ee's. And just like I couldn't count how many gas pumps there were, I also couldn't count how many urinals there were in the men's room. More than you could even see in any one particular part of the men's room. There was just a long line of urinals. And I imagine that the women's room was equally huge with quite as many stalls. And there was a line of people waiting to go into the women's room, like there is at so many big events, right? This is that type of place. Thousands of people were at Buc-ee's. We had a hard time finding a place to park a Ford F-350 and a huge horse trailer because there's just so many people there. It's not like they don't have room. It's just that room has been taken up by other customers. So there you go. That's the show. Check out the Yellowstone official playlist on Spotify or wherever you stream your music. Go to a Buc-ee's if you have the opportunity and click the link in the show description to listen to Hakeem Jeffries' speech and then vote for him whenever he figures out that if he does run, we'll vote him in. I think he's going to be a future president of the United States of America. So Thank you for listening. We are back with Season 4 of 3 Things with JR. I'll see you back in 2 weeks. Next week, you can look forward to a new episode of Small Things Considered with Gary Hawthorne and myself. And I'll see you next week on the other show, and then in 2 weeks again on this show. Thanks for listening. Peace out.